Previously on When the Sea Speaks. A young man's body washed up in the harbor at Turtle Bay. The small station only has 4 officers, and the county team came in, took over the scene, and treated the local police like they were just there to hold the tape. Later, the dead man was ID'd, the only son of a powerful legislator. After the city took the case away, Turtle Bay became a background detail. The village went back to its usual rhythm: boats, grilled squid, gossip by the pier, but people talked a little quieter than before. Xiaowen kept passing the spot where the body was found, with that memory stuck under her skin. One night, her scooter ran out of gas. A young man appeared under the street lamp and helped her push it home. He said his name was Ming. He seemed ordinary, friendly, and strangely good at saying exactly what she needed to hear. After that, he started appearing here and there, at the noodle stall, under the harbor lights, keeping her company after long days at the station. Months later, the city's major crimes unit called. They'd read Xiaowen's notes about the currents at Turtle Bay and realized their original theory about the body drifting in might be wrong. They asked her to come to the city and help. In a small office full of tide charts and case files, Xiaowen started reading. Autopsy reports, drift models, witness statements. Then she opened one binder and froze. The victim in the file was named Wei Mingyuan. The photo was someone she knew very well. It was the face of Ming, the young man who had been walking beside her all this time.
She didn't go back to the case room that afternoon. Detective Gore found her on a bench outside, elbows on her knees, staring at the line where the city buildings ended and a strip of sea showed through. He didn't ask, "What's wrong?" He didn't have to. "We shouldn't have thrown you in there alone," he said quietly. "That much paper. It gets into your head."
"I'm fine."
She lied. "You're not," he said, without judgment, which is normal. He sat beside her, but left a respectful space between them. "When I saw my first body," he said, "I fainted, right in front of everyone. They called me Domino for a year. So if you're about to tell me you're weak, I'm going to disagree." She shook her head.
"It's not just that."
"Then what?" She almost told him, almost said, "I've been eating noodles with your victim for more than 6 months." But the words jammed in her throat. Instead, she grabbed onto something safer.
"You're sure the photo IDs are right?" she asked. "There's no mix-up? That's definitely him?"
The Detective Gu frowned slightly. "Yeah, that's his college ID photo. Why?"
"No reason,"
she said quickly, too quickly. He watched her for a moment, then looked away. "Look," he said, "we're not asking you to carry this case alone. Lieutenant Joe's been on it for months. We have a whole team. You're here to add what only you can add. That's all."
"What only I can add?"
she repeated. "Currents, harbour behaviour, the way tiny places work." He nudged the toe of her shoe with his. "The stuff the rest of us are idiots about." She managed a small, brittle smile. "I'm giving you tonight off the files," he said. "Go back to the guest room, sleep, watch something dumb. If you wake up with ideas, write them down. If you wake up with nothing, that's fine too."
"Thank you."
She nodded. That night, she didn't dream about the case. She didn't dream about the harbour, or the cave, or the sterile white conference room. She didn't dream about Ming at all. The absence lay heavy, like static after someone hangs up without saying goodbye. The next morning, she made the decision before she even got out of bed. If she let this scare her away, it would stay scary forever. If she ran, the only people left working the case would be people like Detective Go and Lieutenant Zhou. Good officers, capable ones, but none of them had walked that harbour with Lao Jiang. None of them had heard the sea's strange moods the way she had. And none of them had sat across from Ming while he joked about how terrible he looked in light blue. If he trusted her, even as a figment of an exhausted mind, then she could at least trust herself long enough to see this through. In the shower, she pressed her forehead against the cool tile.
"Okay,"
she whispered.
"I'll do it, but you don't get to haunt me forever."
No answer came. Water beat steadily against her neck. In the case room, the binders waited. She opened the witness's file again, flipped directly to his photograph, and forced herself to look until the electric jolt of recognition dulled into something she could carry without dropping. Then she read the attached statement. Subject: Wei Mingyuan. Date: 4 months before death. Context: informal conversation with community outreach officer, re scholarship program event. Overheard remarks about uncles at banquet. Months before everything happened, he had told an outreach officer that some of the men who shook his father's hand at charity dinners made his skin crawl. They talked like partners, not donors. One had slapped him on the back and joked, "You'll be handling our side soon too, right, little boss?" He had laughed it off at the time. Xiaowen's grip tightened on the page. He had noticed. Even then, he had been uneasy. She wrote in her notebook, "He was already listening. Like me. Like Lao Zhang. He just listened in the wrong place." Her eyes blurred for a moment. She kept going, not because she wanted to, but because the binder was open and closing it would feel too much like giving up. Her thumb pushed past Aming's page, then the next, letting the summaries blur. Classmates, professors, a neighbor who kept mentioning how polite he had always been. Halfway down a thinner page, a short paragraph sat between 2 dense blocks of text. Easy to miss if you were tired. Witness 14, roadside snack shop owner. What 7, Hill Road toward Coastal Trail. Reports male customer, 50s to 60s. Well-dressed, like on TV. Stopped late afternoon on day of disappearance. Dark SUV, partial plate, ****-73. Ordered 2 sandwiches, 2 bottled drinks. Paid cash. Witness initially unsure whether driver was alone. Thought there might be someone in the front passenger seat, but could not confirm due to glare/tinted glass. No CCTV. No receipt kept. Lead noted and assessed as low value at the time. She pictured the place without trying. A tiny shop on a bend in the road. Handwritten prices. A refrigerator humming in the corner. The sort of place you only found if you weren't in a hurry. Witness 14, roadside snack shop owner. Someone had underlined 2 sandwiches, 2 bottled drinks once, lightly, and never followed up. Xiaowen's pen pressed harder into the margin. If he was alone, why bought 2? And that small line, "might be someone," sat there like a pebble in your shoe. The whiteboard in the main briefing room had grown more crowded since yesterday. New lines connected the Bright Harbour Foundation logo to half a dozen shell companies. Next to one of them, Detective Gore had scribbled, "Board member's friend?" Lieutenant Zhou stood with a mug of tea in her hand, studying the board as if it had personally offended her.
Lieutenant Zhou,
Xiaowen said. She glanced over. "You look like you haven't run away," she said. That was her way of checking in.
I have some thoughts.
Xiaowen said carefully.
About the sea, and maybe about the money.
"Good," Lieutenant Zhou said. "Talk." Xiaowen stepped toward the map, the pen already in her hand. She realized she was gripping it too tightly and forced herself to loosen her fingers. The plastic had already left a faint groove in her skin. She pointed to the coastline.
The drift model you have from the coastal expert,
she said.
Isn't wrong, but it treats the shoreline as smooth. It doesn't account for the little pockets near some of the rock shelves.
She hesitated, then picked up a marker.
With a south wind that day,
she said, drawing a slow arc along the coast.
A body entering the water near the campus seawall would most likely get pushed out along this line first.
She marked a route angling away from Turtle Bay.
From there, it would take much longer than 2 days to reach our harbor. Longer than the window you're using.
Lieutenant Zhou narrowed her eyes. But all our paperwork says his last known location is near campus, she said. Leaving home, heading that way. That's what his father's first statement says, Xiaowen replied carefully.
But the sea doesn't care what the report says.
She moved the marker farther down the coastline to a rougher stretch.
There's a hiking trail here,
she said.
Steeper cliffs, narrow path, stronger undercurrent. If a body enters the water from this section on a south wind, it'll get caught in these smaller eddies first.
She circled a tight cove.
Then pushed north along the rock line and into the current that feeds our harbor.
She drew another arrow ending at Turtle Bay. Oh,
That path fits a 2-day drift much better,
she said.
especially with the wind and tide patterns from your own rapport.
Detective Guo made a soft sound. Huh. So if he didn't enter the water near campus, he said, then all our last seen near school stuff is based on one person's word.
His father's.
Xiaowen said. The room went quiet. Lieutenant Zhou set her mug down. You're saying the sea is calling bullshit on his timeline?
I'm saying the sea is telling us to try again.
Xiaowen said.
If you treat near campus as fixed truth, the currents don't cooperate. If you shift the entry point to the trail area, everything lines up.
Detective Gui leaned back in his chair, staring at the map. We've been assuming we understood where he fell from, he said slowly. We might not even have the right stretch of coast. Lieutenant Zhou nodded once. This is good work, she said. Keep going. Xiaowen felt her shoulders loosen a fraction. Outside the glass wall of the briefing room, the station buzzed with phones, printers, and the quiet murmur of other cases. Wei Mingyuan case, though, had begun to feel less like an impossible mountain, and more like something she recognised from the village. Lines, currents, stubborn people following them. Back in the case room later, the binders didn't look any smaller. She told herself she was only going to double-check one thing. Her hand went straight to witnesses. Witness 14. The roadside snack shop she had circled yesterday. She slid the statement from its plastic sleeve and laid it flat on the table. Under the fluorescent lights, the cheap ink shone faintly. It was exactly as she remembered. A man in his 50s, owner of a small stall on Route 7 above the coastal highway. A well-dressed, like on TV customer in a dark SUV. Late afternoon on the day of the disappearance. Paid cash, no CCTV. It had been marked low relevance at the time. And the line in the middle, underlined once in faint pencil, ordered 2 sandwiches, 2 bottled teas. Her own scrawl still sat in the margin. If he was alone, why buy 2 of everything? Yesterday it had just been a question mark. Now, with the drift map fresh in her mind, it felt heavier. The issue wasn't whether the man was hungry. It was who the second portion was for. One for the driver, one for the passenger the witness had only half seen. Her thumb hovered over the sentence, then moved to the header. Estimated time of visit, 15:20 to 15:30, based on owner recollection and register roll. Her pulse ticked up. On the original timeline, the father was still in the city taking calls. On the new one, forming in her head, 15:20 on that mountain road was exactly when you'd arrive if you drove straight from the city toward the cliff trail. The food stop wasn't just a strange detail anymore. It was a mile marker.
Okay,
She murmured.
if it wasn't just you in that car. Let's see who else was there.
She slid the statement back into its sleeve, grabbed her notebook, and headed for Detective Gore's desk. The place was smaller than she had imagined from the line in the file. Not really a restaurant, just a low, weathered building where the coastal road bent inland for a moment. 2 plastic tables, 3 plastic stools, a refrigerator humming beside the doorway. A handwritten menu taped to the glass. Egg sandwiches, pork floss buns, milk tea, coffee, extra sweet. A strip of sea showed between the hills across the road. Cars didn't stop here unless they already knew the place existed. This is it? Detective Gu asked, squinting at the faded sign.
Matches the address in the SAR log.
Xiaowen said, flipping open her notebook.
And the description.
She glanced toward the doorway.
7 months is a long time.
People remember famous faces longer than that, Detective Gould muttered, especially when they end up on the news. A bell tinkled softly as they stepped inside. Not electronic, just 2 spoons tied together above the doorframe. Welcome, oh. The woman behind the counter wiped her hands on her apron, her eyes flicking immediately to their badges. Police? Her hair was pulled back in a loose knot, grey threaded through black. The apron she wore read "Good Morning" in peeling letters. Detective Gore showed his ID. "I'm Detective Gore from the city station. This is Officer Li. We saw your statement in the old file." He gave a small, apologetic smile. "We know Officer spoke to you before. We're just reviewing a few things."
Yes, Ai.
Xiaowen said.
Sorry to bother you. We're following up on the search you helped with last year.
The woman's gaze sharpened. "The legislator's son," she said quietly. "The boy who went missing." The woman nodded slowly, already searching her memory. "I told them everything," she said. "But if there's something else, I can help."
You mentioned a man in a black SUV.
Xiaowen said gently.
Stopped here late afternoon. Bought sandwiches and drinks.
The woman nodded more firmly. "Yes, I remember because it was quiet that day. No hikers, too hot. Just him." Her mouth tightened. "Later, I recognized him on TV. The father." She paused, organizing the picture in her head. "He parked over there." She pointed to a patch of gravel beside the road. "Came in alone, bought 2 sandwiches, 2 bottles of water, paid cash. I asked, 'Just came down from the trail?' And he said, 'Not yet, going up to get some air.'" "Did he seem rushed?" Detective Guo asked. "Upset?" "No." She shook her head slowly. "Normal. Tired, maybe, like someone who'd been in meetings all day." She hesitated. "Not like on TV, but polite." Xiaowen glanced down at her notes. The original statement contained most of that: time, description, items purchased. What it didn't include was the question she asked next.
When you saw him pull in,
Xiaowen said carefully.
did it look like he was alone?
The woman frowned slightly. She wiped her hands on the apron again, though they were already clean. "I told the other officers he came in by himself," she said slowly. "That's true. Only he stepped inside, but..." She trailed off, her eyes narrowing as if she were trying to focus on something far away. "But?" Detective Gu prompted gently. She nodded to herself, as though settling an argument in her own mind. "I always glance at the cars," she said. "Habit, to see if anyone else might want drinks." She tapped the counter lightly with her fingers. "When he parked, I thought there was someone on the other side." Xiaowen's pulse jumped. "Just a shape," the woman continued. "I couldn't see the face. The sun was coming from that direction." She pointed toward the road. "Glare on the glass. But I remember thinking, maybe a wife, maybe a friend." Then he shut the door and came in alone.
You told the police that?
Xiaowen asked. "I mentioned I wasn't sure." The woman looked suddenly uneasy. "I said I thought there might be someone in the passenger seat, but I couldn't swear to it. The young officer wrote a few words and said it was fine if I wasn't certain." She looked up anxiously. "I didn't want to cause trouble, so I said maybe I imagined it. Was that wrong?"
No.
Xiaowen said quickly. "Why?"
You did exactly what you should. You told the truth as you remembered it. Detective Guo nodded.
"Memory gets tricky around sunlight and glass," he said. "We don't expect miracles. Even not sure can matter." The woman exhaled slowly, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "I kept thinking about it after the news," she said. "Sometimes I'd lie awake wondering, if there really was someone else, did he get found?" She shook her head faintly. "But I only ever saw the father again on TV." Xiaowen felt her throat tighten. She couldn't say, "He didn't get found." Not then. Instead, she asked, "Do you remember which direction the car went afterward? After he bought the food?" "Yes," the woman said immediately. "I watched it when it left. It went toward the coast road, not back toward the city." Her hand tightened on the counter edge. "I'm not wrong about that." "You're not," Detective Gore said softly. "That's very helpful." He glanced briefly at Xiaowen, an unspoken signal. "Your turn."
Ai,
Xiaowen said.
do you have any cameras here? Even an old one above the door?
The woman gave a small, embarrassed laugh. What would we do with cameras? She said. If someone steals a sandwich, I'd see them. She shook her head. No cameras. My son says we should install them for safety, but we never did.
That's okay.
Xiaowen said. She turned slightly toward Detective Guo. What about along the road? If this is the last place to stop before the trail, wouldn't there be traffic cameras nearby? At junctions, bridges? Detective Guo's eyes were already distant, mapping. There's one at the county road junction, he said, about 2 kilometers back, and another at the tunnel mouth toward the coast. They feed into traffic control, not us, but we can request copies. He gave the shop owner a small bow.
Thank you for your time, Ai. We may come back with more questions. For now, you've helped more than you think.
She waved her hand, flustered. If it helps the boy, she said quietly, if he really was here that day, I hope you find out what happened to him. No mother should, no father should. Her voice faltered on the word father. Xiaowen felt the same word snag inside her, but for a different reason. Outside, the sun hung high and flat, baking the asphalt. A truck roared past, rattling the shop's little spoon bell. They walked back to the car in silence. Detective Guo unlocked it, then paused with his hand on the door. If there was someone else in that passenger seat, he said quietly, CCTV or no CCTV, the legislator's first statement is already cracked. Xiaowen looked down the road, toward the place where the asphalt curved towards sea and cliff.
If that someone was Wei Mingyuan, she said, this might be the last place anyone saw him alive who wasn't his father.
The air felt heavier after she said it. Let's go bother traffic control, Detective Guo said. Politely. The footage came back 3 days later. Not as a dramatic courier envelope or a breathless officer rushing in. Just a knock on the case room door, and a tech specialist with dark circles under his eyes, holding a USB drive delicately between 2 fingers. Route 7 request, he said. Gas station and junction cams. We pulled everything from that afternoon and the week around the disappearance, just in case. You owe me coffee. I'll make the captain buy it, Detective Guo said. Thanks. They loaded the files in a small side office where the lights could be dimmed. The monitor wasn't much bigger than the television back at the village station, but at that moment it felt like a courtroom screen. Xiaowen leaned forward, notebook open but untouched. The first clip appeared. A wide shot from the supermarket facade. Cars slid past in jerky, time-stamped motion. 14:59, 15:04, 15:11. A scooter, a delivery truck, a blue hatchback with a dented door. Speed it up to 15:30, Detective Guo said. The tech dragged the slider. Vehicles blurred, then slowed again.
There,
Xiaowen said. At 15:22, a dark SUV entered the frame, nose first, then fully. The plate was half washed out by glare, but the last 2 digits, 7-3, were clear. So was the small Bright Harbor Foundation sticker in the corner of the windshield. Legislator Wei's car. They watched it roll through the intersection, signal blinking, then turn onto Route 7 toward the mountain road. Drivers alone, Detective Guo said, from this angle.
stop.
Xiaowen said. Back a little. The tech reversed a few frames. She leaned closer. The SUV was already sliding out of the frame, but just before it disappeared, the sunlight struck the glass at a slightly different angle. For 2 frames, less than a blink, the reflection softened. And she saw it. Not just the driver's profile. A second shape in the front passenger seat. Head turned slightly toward the window. Then it was gone. Her heart thudded once, hard enough that she felt it in her throat. Can you enhance that? Detective Guo asked, though they all knew the answer. I can make the blur bigger, the tech said dryly. Faces? No. But you can clearly argue 2 separate head and shoulder shapes in the front seats. He marked the frames and saved the stills. Gas station clip next, Detective Guo said. A different camera, a different angle. The same dark SUV appeared again, 8 minutes later, passing the gas station entrance on the climb. This time, as the vehicle moved between the canopy supports, the view was clearer. Driver. And a second silhouette in the passenger seat. Lighter shirt, slumped back slightly. No face. But enough. Xiaowen pressed her palm flat against the table, needing something solid beneath it. On paper, at that time of day, Ming was supposed to be heading toward campus to meet friends, while his father stayed in the city taking calls. On the screen, they were together, driving toward the coastal hiking trail. Together. And only the father had come back. Detective Gore exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said. "That's one wall cracked." He looked at her. "You all right?" Her tongue felt dry. She swallowed.
I'm fine.
She said. The words came out rough.
I just keep thinking about the IE at the shop. How she said she wasn't sure. All this time, the cameras were surer than any of us.
"Cameras can't tell stories," Detective Gore said. "That's our job." He copied the clips onto a labelled drive and sealed it inside an evidence bag. "When we go back at him," he said, meaning the father, "we won't ask if he went hiking. We'll ask why he lied about leaving the city when we can put his car and his son on that road together." Xiaowen nodded. Her eyes stayed fixed on the paused frame. Two blurred shapes behind glass, frozen forever on their way to the mountain. For a moment, she let herself see them not as evidence, but as what they had been. Someone's last, ordinary car ride. Then she blinked hard, closed her notebook before the feeling could spill over, and stood.
Tell me when you schedule the next interview,
She said.
I want to be in the room.
They brought legislator Wei in 3 days later. Not as a suspect, not officially, as a grieving father assisting with the ongoing investigation. He arrived with a lawyer, of course. The cameras outside the station recorded every step, every careful crease of his brow. By the time he sat down in the interview room, half the performance had already been delivered. Xiaowen watched from behind the one-way glass. He looked exactly as he did on television. Carefully styled hair, pressed shirt, the expression of controlled grief. His hands were folded on the table. Only the whiteness of his knuckles showed the strain. "I've told you everything I remember," he said to Lieutenant Zhou, who sat across from him with a file open. "My son went out that afternoon. He said he might be late. I stayed home, took calls, went to dinner." His voice caught. "The next thing I knew, the police were calling." "I would give anything for more details," he added quietly. "But there aren't any." His lawyer, a woman in a dark suit, hair pulled into a precise bun, rested a hand briefly on his arm. "Legislator Wei has cooperated fully since the beginning," she said. "He's repeated this timeline countless times. I hope this will be the last time we put him through it, unless you have something specific." "We do," Lieutenant Zhou said. Her voice remained calm, almost courteous. "That's why I wanted to speak with you in person. New information has come in connected to the coastal area where your son's body was found. I'd like to give you the opportunity to clarify before we take any formal steps." Legislator Wei's eyes flicked briefly toward the glass wall, as if he could feel someone watching from the other side, then returned to her. "New information?" he repeated. "About what?" "About your afternoon," Lieutenant Zhou said. "On the day he disappeared, you stated you were at home, taking calls until you left for dinner, correct?" "Yes." "Legislator," Wei said quickly, "I've said that many times. My staff can confirm it. My calendar, my call logs." Lieutenant Zhu slid a photograph across the table. Traffic camera resolution. A dark SUV moving along a hill road. Headlights on. The plate was grainy but legible. Through the windshield glare, two shapes. Driver, passenger. "This is Provincial Route 7, Lieutenant Zhu said calmly. Hill spur toward the coastal trail. Timestamp, 1542. License plate, your vehicle." "Legislator." Wei's jaw tightened for a fraction of a second before he forced himself to look. "That could be any day," he said. "I drive that road often. Constituents in the hills, events, visits. The angle is terrible. You can't even see who's inside." Of course, the lawyer said smoothly. This image is far from conclusive. My client's car is used by staff as well, and as you mentioned, he travels that corridor frequently. Lieutenant Joe didn't argue. She slid a second page across the table. Gas station camera at the junction, she said. Same date stamp, same vehicle. 15:37. Pulling in, paying cash, leaving 5 minutes later. She tapped the page lightly. The attendant remembers you buying drinks and sandwiches for the road.
Legislator.
Wei swallowed. I don't recall that particular stop, he said, but I have many days like that. It may have been a different week. Perhaps the timestamp is wrong. Small places don't always maintain their clocks accurately. The attendant placed it as the day before the missing notice went up, Lieutenant Joe said, because your photograph was on his counter the next morning. And he told Search and Rescue he'd seen you drive past toward the trail that previous afternoon? The lawyer's hand tightened on his sleeve. Search and rescue statements are messy by nature, she said. People misremember. They want to be helpful. Unless you can prove this isn't just a similar day... We're working on that, Lieutenant Zhao said. We've requested call detail records for your mobile and office lines. If they show continuous activity from your home district during the 15:30 to 1600 window, that will support your version. If they show a gap matching this drive time... She let the sentence trail off. Behind the glass, Xiaowen saw a pulse jump once in Legislator Wei's throat. I receive hundreds of calls, he said. His voice had gone slightly dry. Some are taken by staff. Some are returned later. If there's a gap, it only proves I wasn't on the phone. It doesn't prove I was on that hill. No, Lieutenant Joe agreed calmly. Not by itself. The edge of the photo bent slightly under her hand. The two faint silhouettes inside stared back, faceless. What concerns me, she added, is that every time we find a line that might lead toward that hill, the paperwork around you blurs. Calendars are not updated yet. Assistant schedules don't exist in that format anymore. But the cameras don't care whose staff typed what. The lawyer's tone cooled. Detective, unless you are prepared to arrest my client for altering records, we're done dancing around implications. I'm not accusing, Lieutenant Joe said. I'm telling you we're still looking, and that our understanding of that afternoon is changing. Legislator Wei spread his hands, a gesture that would play beautifully on the evening news. I have nothing to hide, he said. If you need more records, ask. If you want more questions answered, I will answer them. But I will not sit here and have my love for my son twisted into suspicion because I drove on a road. I've driven all my life. His voice cracked slightly on the word love. On television it would have been devastating. Behind the glass, Xiaowen felt only cold. Arming's graduation photo flashed through her mind, then the noodle stool, then the black water beneath the harbour tape. The lawyer checked her watch. Unless you are charging him, she said, I'm advising my client not to answer further questions today. This line of inquiry is clearly speculative. Lieutenant Joe closed the folder with a soft thud. Thank you for your time, Legislator Wei, she said. We may have follow-up once we receive the phone records. Legislator Wei stood. The grief settled back onto his shoulders, heavy, controlled, photogenic. For a moment his gaze passed across the glass wall. Xiaowen had the strange, irrational feeling that he could see her through it. Then he turned away. The door closed with a quiet click. Behind the glass, Xiaowen let out a slow breath. She hadn't realized she had been holding it.
He's lying,
she said. Detective Gore stood beside her with his arms folded. He said.
He had answers ready before she finished asking,
Xiaowen said. Her voice sounded rougher than she wanted. Before she even mentioned the gas station, he was already talking about any day and staff using the car. People telling the truth say, wait, what are you showing me? First. Detective Gore watched the empty chair through the glass, thinking. Juries like stories, not science, he said finally. Cameras, currents, phone logs, those help us build the story. but we still need the thing that makes them lean forward and say, "Oh." "The thing that closes the loop," she said.
Exact.
The station was mostly dark when she left the briefing room. In the guest room, she sat on the narrow bed, phone in her hand, thumb hovering over her messages, before she remembered there was no one she could really text about this. For a moment, she saw him again, the way he'd first appeared in Turtle Bay, one hand on her stalled moped, teasing her about running out of gas, as if they had all the time in the world to push it up that hill. Her eyes burned before she realised she was crying. Quiet, stubborn tears that blurred the ugly floral bedspread.
You were in that car.
She whispered.
You were right there. And you still ended up in my harbor.
She wiped her face with the heel of her hand and turned off the light. A small, childish part of her braced for something in the corner. A wet shadow, a pale shape, the kind of movie ghost she'd never liked. There was nothing, just the hum of the air conditioner and distant traffic.
Okay.
She said softly into the dark.
I'm scared. But I'm not leaving you like this.
The words settled under her ribs, sore but solid. In the morning, he would go back to being victim and case file. Tonight, just for a little while, he was eyeing her friend, who had trusted her without ever explaining why. The next real break came from an unexpectedly small place. One of Wang Laoda's runners, a skinny man with too much hair gel and too little patience for prison, finally cracked on the 6th day in custody. He wasn't important enough to have a good lawyer, but he was important enough to know gossip. "You think we only move pills?" he scoffed during his 3rd interview. "Sometimes we move people's problems, too." "Problems," Detective Guo repeated. "Like debts?" "Like loose ends," the man said, rolling his eyes. "Rich people panic. They call the boss calls us. Help me clean up this mess," he smirked. "We're the cleaning crew. Only the broom is a boat." "Tell me about a time you cleaned for a rich man," Detective Guo said. The man hesitated, glancing at the camera. "I want a deal first." "We'll see what we can do," Detective Guo said. "Talk first." So he talked. About 9 months earlier, when they'd been told, on short notice, to take a boat out along a quiet stretch of coast. "Pick up cargo," the boss had said. No lights, no questions. A black car had been waiting in a gravel pull-off above the cliffs. 2 men carried a long, wrapped shape down the path. It was heavy. Looked like a body, the runner admitted now, sweat beading on his upper lip. I didn't ask. Boss said it was from some accident, that we were doing a favour. Some idiot slipped up, we help him calm the waves, that kind of talk. "Who was in the car?" Detective Guo asked. "Boss," the runner said, meaning Wang Laoda's superior. "And some big shot. Suit. I only saw him from the side. He stayed back. Let us do the carrying." "Describe him." The runner shrugged. "Older, hair all neat, expensive watch. The kind who smells like temples on holidays. You know, incense and rich people perfume." "Not helpful," Detective Guo muttered. "But I heard how Boss talked to him," the runner added, almost casually. "Big brother," he called him. "Don't worry, big brother," he said. "Once the sea takes it, nobody comes asking questions." He gave a small, uneasy laugh. Boss laughed, I mean, not the big shot. The big shot didn't say anything, just stood there. Detective Guo's pen paused above his notebook. "Big brother," he repeated. "He called the politician Big Brother?" "Yeah," the runner said. "But they say that a lot. Makes everyone sound friendly, like we're all family." Later, in the briefing room, Detective Guo dropped the transcript onto the table. "We have a timeline," he said. "We have a wrapped problem carried down from the cliff near Marker 7 and handed to a boat belonging to the same gang moving product through our tourist district. We have their boss reassuring some big brother that the sea will make it disappear." Lieutenant Zhou's eyes shone with a sharp, focused light. Xiaowen hadn't seen before. "Not enough on its own," Lieutenant Zhou said. "Gangsters call everyone Big Brother, But the boat logs, the phone calls, the charity payments, the lies about the trail. She tapped the table lightly. Together, it's starting to look less like coincidence and more like conspiracy.
And the body drift.
Xiaowen added quietly.
Don't forget the sea.
Lieutenant Zhou gave a thin smile. Never again. They pulled more phone records. Buried among hundreds of calls were 3 short ones from Legislator Wei's personal phone to a number linked to the gang boss on the night of Wei Mingyuan's disappearance. The calls lasted only seconds, enough to say, come, here, and done. Enough to prove contact, when he had sworn he didn't know those people at all. Financial Crimes returned with another report. The Bright Harbour Foundation had made a disaster relief transfer to a newly formed shell company the day after Wei Mingyuan's body appeared on the news. The shell company's account was later used to purchase 2 boats registered under false names. Lieutenant Zhou stood over the growing web of evidence. We have motive, she said. Son discovers father's corruption. Son confronts him. On the trail, the argument turns physical. Maybe he means to shove. Maybe he grabs and loses control. Her voice remained steady. Either way, the boy goes over. She paused. And instead of calling for help, the father panics. He calls his criminal partners to remove the body. He pays them using charity funds and uses public grief to buy time. Her gaze settled on Xiaowen.
And we have the sea.
She said quietly.
Trying to throw the boy back where someone would listen.
Xiaowen's throat tightened. Now, Lieutenant Zhou said, we make it hold. They didn't get a dramatic confession. What they got was an indictment. Prosecutors love timelines. They love phone records, money flows, transaction logs, anything that can be turned into a clean story made of dates and numbers. Xiaowen sat in the back of the conference room while the major crimes team laid it all out. The false trail marker, GPS readings from the charity van, payments to the shell company, the runner's testimony about the wrapped cargo, the calls from Legislator Wei's phone to the gang boss. When the discussion drifted into legal language, her thoughts wandered, not away exactly, but sideways. She remembered Ming holding chopsticks, gesturing with them while teasing her about overthinking. She remembered the slope of his shoulders as he leaned on the harbour wall, watching the dark water like it was more familiar than the street. He had trusted the wrong person, and he had been killed for it. That part she couldn't fix. But she could make sure the man who did it never stood in front of another camera and said, "My son had no enemies," as if the words were armour. Lieutenant Zhou stepped out after the prosecutors left. We're moving forward with the arrest, she said. No more interviews. The Attorney General's office is on board. She paused. I want you to know, Xiaowen, what you brought us, with the currents and the cave and the foundation roots, without that, this would still be a mess of suspicions. She nodded once. Now it's a case. Heat stung behind Xiaowen's eyes.
I just listened,
she said. Sometimes that's the hardest part, Lieutenant Zhou replied. Most people only hear what they want. The arrest happened 2 days later, early, before the morning news cycle had fully woken up. Legislator Wei was taken from the parking garage beneath his apartment complex, not in handcuffs, policy, but with 2 plainclothes officers at his elbows. The cameras still caught it. By noon, the news anchors were already using words like shock, betrayal, and fall from grace. At the Turtle Bay station, Liger sent her a photo of their old television. On the screen, Legislator Wei's face, split between an old campaign poster and the fresh arrest image. Look who finally fell in, the text read. Captain says good job. Even though he says it like, now we have more paperwork. Xiaowen laughed quietly, alone in the guest room. A wet laugh. That night, she dreamed again. They weren't at the harbour this time. They stood beside a road she only half recognised, one of those coastal highways where rock rose on one side and the sea tilted away on the other. In the dream there were no cars, only the sound of waves and the faint hum of a streetlight. Aming leaned against the guardrail. He looked different. Not in his clothes, they were the same, but something tight had eased out of his face. The shadows under his eyes were softer, like someone had finally loosened a rope that had been pulled too long.
Hi.
You disappeared.
I know. I'm sorry.
You should be. You show up in my life, help me chase ghosts and smugglers. Then I come here and find your face in a file like it's nothing. And then you just vanish?
I didn't plan it very well.
You think?
She snapped. Wind tugged at his hair. The sea below hissed and sighed.
I didn't mean to barge into your life like that. When the sea threw me into your harbor, I thought I'd just watch, for a while, see what happened.
He gestured helplessly.
But you were there. You saw more than anyone else that day, even though they pushed you behind the tape. You asked the right questions. You wrote down the wind.
That doesn't mean...
It meant something. To me.
He looked out toward the dark water.
I'd just come from a world where everyone pretended not to see. Where they heard things and thought, better not. And then there you were, in that little station, taking notes like the sea's mood mattered. I wanted to be like that, for a while.
Why not them? Your father, his associates, the people on the cliff.
They already made their choices. I didn't trust them when I was alive. Why would I trust them now?
His gaze met hers, steady, for once, without humor.
But you, when I first saw you on the pier, you looked scared and sick and angry all at once. And you still wrote everything down. You didn't look away.
I'm not a medium.
I know. You're a cop.
Silence stretched between them. The road hummed faintly beneath their feet, the way asphalt sometimes does at night, like it remembers engines.
You never told me anything about your own case.
I couldn't. Or I wouldn't.
He rubbed the back of his neck.
There's a line. If I start pushing people around with what I know, I'm no better than the ones who lied about me. But if I stand where you already happen to be, and ask a question you were already close to asking, maybe that's allowed.
She realized suddenly that he was as unsure of the rules as she was.
You trusted me with your case. Did you ever think it would work?
Not at the start. At the start, I was just lonely.
The words landed harder than she expected.
And now?
She asked. He looked out at the water.
Now there's an indictment. My father will have to sit in a courtroom and hear people say his name next to words he hates. People will learn what he did, what he paid for. It's not perfect. It won't bring anyone back, but it's something. A piece of truth.
It's yours.
It's ours. You, Detective Guo, Lieutenant Zhou, Lao Zhan arguing about the south wind. I'm grateful.
You're not mad? That it took this long?
Grief takes time. I'm not the only one who had to learn what he was capable of.
She thought of his mother. In the witness file, she had spoken only once. I thought they were going to work things out. She thought of the kids on scooters in Turtle Bay, shouting and laughing past the place where his body had been pulled from the water.
The city chief offered me a job.
That was fast.
He said if I get tired of slow cases and fishing complaints, I could transfer here. Join major crimes. Bigger team. Better resources.
And?
And I don't know yet. Part of me likes it here. The noise. The feeling that what we do ripples farther. But part of me keeps thinking about my little station. Our broken fan. Liga pretending to hate everything but secretly caring about everyone. I feel like a fish being asked if she wants to move to a bigger tank. I'm not sure I'm built for that much glass.
You'll make the right choice.
That's not helpful.
I'm not here to make your decisions for you. Only to say, wherever you end up, the sea will be there too. It doesn't belong to just one harbor.
That's almost poetic.
Whatever you choose, Thank you.
For what?
For listening to a story that could have just been a headline. For letting it be heavier than that. Even when it hurt.
You're welcome.
Something warm and painful rose inside her. When she woke, her pillow was wet again, but this time she didn't feel quite as hollow. Lieutenant Zhou didn't pressure her. She called Xiaowen into her office the day after the arrest went public. City Chief was impressed, Lieutenant Zhou said. He likes officers who think sideways. He asked me if I thought you'd be a good fit here, long term. I said yes, Lieutenant Zhou said. Which doesn't mean you should. You're young. You have time to move and move back, or not move at all. I won't be offended if you say no. Xiaowen stared at the edge of the desk.
My village needs me. Not because I'm anything special, just because there aren't many of us. If I leave, that's one less person who doesn't laugh when an old fisherman says he heard something strange out on the water. One less person who bothers to write down the wind. And I think I like being close to the first place the sea throws things. The city only gets them after they've already been chewed up.
Lieutenant Zhou's mouth twitched. That's one way to put it.
I still want to work with you if I can. If cases overlap. If you ever need someone to go out on a dumb little boat again, just based in Turtle Bay.
Jurisdiction gets flexible when people trust each other, Lieutenant Zhou said. You'll call us, we'll call you. We'll make the paperwork cry. She extended her hand. Thank you for what you've done here, Officer Li. Xiaowen shaking her hand.
Thank you for listening to a small station.
On the bus ride back, her phone buzzed. Liger had sent 30 photos of their office plant, claiming it missed her. Ah Qiang sent one of Lao Zhang, who refused to smile but whose eyes looked suspiciously bright. Outside the window, the city coastline slid past, then slowly softened into the shapes she knew better. Smaller harbours, quieter coves. Turtle Bay. The bus never went all the way down into the harbour. It stopped on the main road above the coast, beside a concrete bus shelter with a faded route map and a convenience store across the street. Turtle Bay Harbour, the driver called. Xiaowen pressed the stop button and stood. Her bag felt lighter than it should. A few weeks ago she had carried Wei Mingyuan case in her head like a stack of bricks. Now there were only a change of clothes, a toothbrush, and a tiredness that didn't quite know where to sit. For a moment she stayed where she was, hand wrapped around the rail, watching the door instead of moving. Coming back felt more real than the press conferences and briefing rooms ever had. The doors hissed open. Warm air and a breath of exhaust wrapped around her as she stepped down. From here it was a 10-minute walk, maybe 15. Down the sloping side street, past the laundry shop, past the noodle store's metal shutters, toward the strip of harbour she could have drawn with her eyes closed. Her feet remembered immediately. The rest of her lagged behind. Part of her wanted to hurry, like she was late for a shift she had never officially left. Another part wanted to walk slowly, checking whether the village had shifted even a little while she'd been gone. She adjusted the strap on her shoulder and started down the hill. It was late afternoon. Not sunset yet, but the light had softened, sliding along the rooftops. Somewhere someone was frying garlic. A scooter backfired in the distance. The air smelled like home. Fish, oil, and a little dampness. The ordinariness of it stung more than she expected. The city already felt far away, like something she'd watched on television instead of lived through. Here, laundry still flapped from balconies. Someone shouted for a kid to come inside. A dog barked at nothing. When she turned the last corner and the harbour came into view, the place where she and Ah Ming had once stood arguing about whether ghosts cared about paperwork, she saw him. He stood a little apart from the bus shelter, near the railing overlooking the water. Not close enough to touch, not far enough to blur into the rest of the world. Just there. Like he had been waiting a while and didn't mind. Same jacket, same easy posture. No wind touched his clothes, even though her own hair lifted in the breeze. For a moment her feet stopped. Life kept moving around her. A kid kicked a plastic bottle along the pavement. A woman dragged a crate of vegetables across the street. Gulls wheeled overhead. No one else looked his way. He lifted a hand. Not a wave exactly, just a small, clear gesture. A goodbye. Her throat tightened. She swallowed and lifted her own hand. It trembled slightly. He smiled.
Thank you,
he said clearly, the same bright, ordinary neighbour boy smile she'd first seen under a street lamp with a broken moped between them.
Thank you,
she whispered. She didn't know if the words reached him. Maybe they didn't have to. He bowed then, the quiet, respectful kind people give at funerals, graduations, train platforms. When he straightened, the light shifted behind him. For a moment, he was harder to look at, like heat rising from asphalt. The shape of him thinned. She didn't blink. He lifted his hand one last time, and then, slowly, he wasn't there. Just the railing, just the harbor, just the soft knocking of water against the pilings. Xiaowen lowered her arm. Her eyes stung, but she was smiling. A small, tired smile, the kind that comes when you can finally breathe again. She turned away from the railing and walked toward the station with the broken fan, the 2 small desks, and Ah Chang's endless complaints. Behind her, somewhere far down the coast, waves struck rock and spread outward. Currents folded and turned, carrying things people thought they had buried. Work would be waiting, so would the sea. And when the sea spoke, she knew now. It didn't always use words.